Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are again, a Saturday night on Manx Radio, 9 o'clock, which of course all jazz fans know means it is the time for the best in modern and contemporary jazz in Jumpin' In with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, hello and welcome to this week's show. And can you believe it? The end of January, just 11 shopping months late before Christmas, so grab those bargains now. And more to the point, new jazz releases are coming in thick and fast as we swing into a new year. So, H, what's been putting a spring into your step, other than looking at the first snowdrops, obviously, and what's been getting a frosty reception?
I tell you what, the snowdrops are out in my garden, which is rather nice to see. Some young German jazz from the wonderful ACT label. Vincent Meissner and his trio being hotly tipped by those in Germany, certainly, and I think wider afield will be checking in on his new release out in February. Ben Rosenblum, we checked in on him a year or two back, a wonderful stateside player with a really imaginative take on jazz mixed in with Balkan traditions, folk music and all sorts of others, and we'll go back a little bit for some jazz in the space age.
And from me, we say to our white bird with our feet firmly on the ground. The clock is ticking, but it's not the last one. We end at the beginning, and to kick off, we're born again. Here's Rebirth from Noam Lamish. Rebirth from 12, the latest album, and in fact the 8th release from Israeli-born pianist and composer Noam Lamish. The 12, he says, comes from the number of band members, not counting guests. It's also Noam's age when he completed his first composition, and also the number of years since he relocated from San Francisco to Toronto. Anyway, it certainly caught my attention, and whilst I didn't recognise any of the band members, they can certainly swing, and I will be looking into his back catalogue for sure. The album's called 12.
Cracking stuff. Great way to get going, as ever, with one of the seemingly never-ending list of new big bands on the market. It's amazing when you think about
release,
it.
So nothing entirely new.
I know, and more to the point, just the very nature, the finance, the whole logistics of doing big band jazz these days seems to be such a non-starter, from the finance to the studio time to getting all the guys and girls together. And yet, there seem to be dozens of them out there playing at that standard.
I just think it shows us real joy in actually doing it for the musicians.
Yeah,
I think,
I suspect it's all about the music and far less about the money in an awful lot of these ones. At the other end of the scale, the jazz trio, one of my favourite formats in jazz, the jazz piano trio, or indeed sax trio for that matter, absolutely nowhere to hide. So many exponents of it, of course, the great EST, Keith Jarrett with his standards trio, Bill Evans perhaps going back to earlier days and starting off the modern trend for piano trio jazz, and then more recently, like I said, EST, sadly no more, with that wonderful sound. And from Germany, of course, we've had quite a few as well, some really good ones. And this one, new on the block, new to me at least in any case. I think he's got an album out before this one on ACT. Vincent Meissner and his trio, a new hope in German jazz, according to the German broadcaster MDR Cultures on his latest album. And Deutschlandfunk went somewhat further, saying his band will take off like a rocket. And it's not just in Germany, in case you were wondering. Downbeat US said excitement running through the whole album, produced by his mentor, one of the other great jazz piano trio players of modern times, Michael Volney. This is from his new album, which is out next month, and this is called Sonne. Yeah, lovely stuff. You can hear the felts coming back on the string there at the end of the recording, beautifully recorded by ACT, a jazz wonderful label, of course, as well. As we know, loads of great stuff coming out of them and has been for a number of years. Vincent Meissner Trio. We were just saying it's his second on ACT. There was one a year or two back. I think we probably played it on the programme. I'd totally forgotten about. So his second on ACT, and he's had quite a few CDs out. But now, bearing in mind, he's only 20, so again, he must have been bringing stuff out when he was in his teens, like a lot of these amazing young talents. But now 20 is almost seen as maturing, would you believe? Moving on. COVID obviously caused a bit of a break in his career, like they did with so many. Bassist Josef Zajmec and drummer Henri Reichmann have moved on. I was seeing in the notes that came with the release, they said, well, when you're 20, life does have a way of moving on very quickly. Josef is now studying Basel. Henri has moved to Leipzig to continue studies there, while Vincent's main piano teacher is now the former WDR big band legend, Frank Chastenier. That, and also, as we were mentioning, Michael Volney. He says the Volney-Chastenier mix is a great combination for him. Lovely complex stuff, nice flowing lines. Again, yes, you hear echoes of EST. Not so much Keith Jarrett maybe, but definitely a bit of EST. Obviously, there's always a bit of Evans in there somewhere along the line. And of course, Volney as well, bound to be sound a little bit Volney-esque, I guess. And no doubt, as time goes by, we'll have more and more of his own sound coming into it. Likes those flowing lines, likes pop music as well. Terrific stuff, worth checking out. It is, like I said, the album I thought was called Willy at first, but it's not, as in Bill Frisell and the Willies. It's called Wille, of course. Ich will, or Ich wille, I can't remember my German now. Will, in other words. And Sonne is either sound or sun. Sound, I think, is the most likely translation for that one. The album is out. It is called Wille with a W, and it is out on the 24th of February.
Thank you for those Willie sounds, H. Very useful indeed. Now, a trumpeter whose work has always delighted us here on the show since we first discovered him, and I think typically, again, albeit that he was very young then, it was probably about 4 albums in, was the Polish star Jerzy Malek, whose last outing in 2020, Black Sheep, I think was one of my picks of the year. Well, this latest release just came out at the end of last year, completely off the radar. I only found it by chance, and at the moment it appears to be digital only, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But taken from Gravity, here's Bye Bye White Crow. And so it decays.
Yeah, tell you what, he's playing on the
gradually
sustain
away.
there, wasn't he?
No, fantastic. Really, really lovely album, this. And surprised that it hasn't come out as a tangible copy as of yet, but perhaps we'll keep our eyes open for something like that. Jerzy Melek and Bye Bye White Crow, taken from his latest release, Gravity. Jerzy says he originally took up the trumpet as a teen because it was small and light enough to be carried on a bicycle. And then he joined a brass band because he wanted to disrupt them. Whatever the motivation, he's gone on to be one of the leading forces in Polish jazz and indeed on the world stage with a new quintet there. Really, really nice album. Hopefully it'll be a tangible release of it sometime in the not too distant future, and even more hopefully perhaps we'll catch him on tour. He's not someone we've seen live yet, is it?
Never seen live,
No,
never
love to
interviewed
catch
him. It would be very nice. Yeah, fine player, and certainly is one of those ones, as we often say on this programme, you get some guys and girls, some wonderful artists who pretty much stay in their home area, albeit, it might be a big country like Poland or Belgium or Germany, as the case may be, and are really well known, have a great career there, but rarely go elsewhere. And then there's that breaking onto the whole world market sometimes, where people become world stars in the jazz genre rather than just stars within their own local firmament. And I don't know how that works, but I dare say, like a lot of things in life, it's not down to skill so much as lucky breaks, just playing at the right place at the right time, being heard by the right person, whatever the case may be. We'll do our own little bit here on Jumpin' In, of course, to spread the word as well. It is Jumpin' In, best in modern and contemporary jazz here on Mike's Radio every Saturday night, and of course available on the podcast. Check it out. You can just go to the Mike's Radio website and download, or of course subscribe via your usual subscribers and have it delivered to you every week automatically without having to lift a finger. Marvellous stuff. Space age stuff it is indeed. Jazz in the space age. Great stuff. Jazz in the Space Age from the album of the same name. Of course, the George Russell Orchestra, and that track is actually entitled Chromatic Universe Part 1. There's 3 parts to the Chromatic Universe in the middle of that set, one at the beginning, one in the middle. It's sort of tops and tails, and a bit in the middle as well, all with that quirky opening on the percussion, and then going into sort of brushwork, I think, from Don Lemon there. Bill Evans on the piano, would you believe? And I think, looking at the track listing, it's Paul... No, it's Bill Evans on piano, yeah, and I'm just trying to see who the bass player was, and I don't know that actually lists it on this particular one. Milt Hinton, by the looks of it, on bass. Classic album from the 1960s. I heard that I was listening to some internet jazz radio the other week, and this popped up at one of the tracks, not that one, but in fact the second track on the album, which is called Dimensions, but it's almost 13 minutes, so a little bit long for this programme. But I thought, wow, that's really good stuff. What is it? And went and dug out the album, and you forget just how good some of this stuff was and how modern it still sounds. Really has stood the test of time. If you don't know it, go and check them out. Whether it's Stratus Funk or the Stratus Seekers or Jazz in the Space Age, you won't be disappointed with any of them.
And funny enough, mentioned just while we were listening to that, there's been a new recording by a new band, Orchestra de Matsosinos, and tackled a young jazz orchestra. Very, very good version too. Different take on it. Might try and fit some of that in a different show.
Really quirky character with this Lydian concept of chromatic. What is it?
Yeah, great stuff.
Yes, I never fully understood it, but the music's good.
Modes. Get your modes together.
Organisation, that's it.
Now, the vibes are not perhaps an instrument to everyone's taste. I can think of somebody who finds them the devil's spawn, but it is interesting to hear a couple of new takes on this percussive lead instrument, and one leading proponent is Frenchman Simon Moulier. With a Coltrane original, here's Simon and his trio with Countdown. Simon Moulier and his trio with Countdown, the title track of their 2021 sophomore release of the same name. I think a very interesting take on the classic vibes trio with some discreet electronics, not to mention Jared-style scat singing in the background there from Simon himself, I take it, giving him a distinct sound. They are Luca Alamano on bass, Jungkook Kim on the drums, and Simon Moulier on vibraphone. And I notice they've got a new release out in the next few weeks, I think, so look out for that too.
Terrific stuff. Bit more tuneful than Jarrett, I must admit, or even worse, Masabumi Kikuchi went very much with it. Just the groan. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, you got used to it after a while, but I know it really annoyed some people. No such problem with Ben Rosenblum, a pianist, accordionist, composer, a young guy on the block in the States. We heard his album Kites and Strings, which came out in 2020, I think that was, and this is the album following on from that, and a major leap forward it is as well, I think, as it's noted by a lot of the critics and some of the notes accompanying the album. This album is called 1,000 Pebbles. We're going to hear a track, Catamaran, which starts off classical and ends up Celtic.
Hi, this is Craig Taborn, and you're listening to Jumpin' In with H and Chris on Manx Radio.
It just stops because it fades into another track there, the beginning of Rimdom's album Reflections and Odyssey's Bugger Vesseltost, Dan Berglund, Magnus Erstrom. Before that, the new one, 1,000 Pebbles, a track called Catamaran from Ben Rosenblum with his Nebula project. And as you could gather there, reflecting his disparate, really global musical tastes. Bulgarian vocal polyphony, which features on one track, northern Brazilian party music, Afro-Caribbean rhythms, traditional Irish music, you name it, they are all there in the mix, and ending that one quirkily with an Irish jig. Well worth checking out. It's quirky, it's great fun, I've been enjoying it so far, and no doubt I'll be playing a little bit more. Ben leading and composing and playing the piano, accordion and the piano there as well, along with the likes of Jasper Dutz on the reeds. We've got Wayne Tucker on the trumpets, guitarist Raphael Rose, bassist Martin Jaffa, the drummer Ben Zweig from the first album as well, with a new addition Xavier del Castillo on tenor sax and flute. Great stuff.
Great stuff indeed, and that's about it for this week's show. Except I've got time to fit in a track from an album I've really been enjoying over the course of the last year from Franco-American pianist Tom Sochas, born and raised in Paris, France and Nairobi and Kenya. Tom moved to London in 2011 and began to compose for a band there together, a contemporary jazz quartet he's kept together since then, and his latest is his first actual album release, which is called The Sorcerer. Taken from that, here's the prologue with Greek bassist Theodoros Zaiakis and British drummer Ollie Sakar, and of course Tom on piano and electronics. Nice to hear the piano trio continuing to reinvent itself. See you next week.
Always, indeed. If you want to check out more on Ben Rosenblum, BLUMmusic.com, and you'll find more on that. And same time, same place.
See you later. Bye for now.